Well, I think our strongest tools, we have a full-time economic development center that's their primary job. And we've told them time again when we meet with them that when you wake up in the morning, we want you thinking about economic development in our community. And we want you thinking about retaining industry and growing industry, and we want you to think about jobs, and we want you to see things before they happen and help us solve problems. Because really what it comes down to in a community, if you're not growing jobs and you're not retaining the industry that you have some serious problems. And I'm very proud of that. That board has been a very proactive board. Nick Brake and his group have worked hard. They've been very proactive. The Center for Business and Industry and the role they played, and really they deserve 90% of the credit when you talk about putting the deals together that kept Fields Packing Company open a year or so ago, and the deal that a lot of people see the U.S. Bank headlines that we have added 500 jobs, but I think the thing that they forget is if we had not gotten those 500 jobs, I was really worried about the other 1,200 that were here, 11 or 1,200, and that group did an outstanding job of involving us and making sure that we kept U.S. Bank in Owensboro.
One of the things that, and this is a question that I'm asking all the candidates, one of the things that you always hear during an election season is, I'm going to work to bring good jobs to this community. Realistically, what's the role of a city commissioner in economic development?
And that's a good question, because it's probably a little secondary, but what I tell people when they start talking about what do you do, and I said, well, the first thing I do is that I know, and I'm smart enough to know, and I've read, I'm not an economist, but I know that jobs are following people now. And they're following a workforce that's trained and educated and can do the jobs that people need done. And the thing we can do is to continue to encourage and help strengthen our education systems and make sure that we're a part of that. I mean, that we're at the table when they talk about education, not just secondary education, but our post-secondary institute. Those are so important, and sometimes people forget about that when their children are through high school and college and they've graduated and they have a job. You tend not to see the importance as much because your children aren't in education, but it's so important for the vitality and strength of a community, and we need to continue to grow the number of graduates we have. That's our strongest economic development tool, and it's going to be the strongest in the next 20 or 30 years. The jobs aren't going to arrive probably in the thousands or 500s like they did before. There are going to be more jobs created. That there are going to be companies that start up that have 75 employees, and that's probably the trend you're going to see in the future.
What areas, if any, do you feel that the city's hands are tied in approaching economic development? I mean, what are those tools or whatnot that you wish the city were able to utilize to help encourage development?
Well, I don't like to look at it as what we can't do. I mean, what I've tried to look at, and I hate to keep going back to downtown, but we've tried to have a philosophy of let's find out what we can do. Let's see where we can put our shoulder behind something and make it happen. Because if you spend a lot of time talking about things you don't have in this community, the transportation, the interstate issue, we know that's always going to be an issue. We're never going to have the growth rate probably Bowling Green has for some of the industry that locates there. But that doesn't mean we get out of the game. We're just in a different game, and we're going to have to make our community attractive enough to business and industry and people that they not only want to locate and build here, but they want to live here. And if we do those things, I think the other part takes care of itself.